All right, everybody. Welcome to the very final class. Sad to say, can't believe it went so quickly. Glowing Color in the Luminous Landscape, 2024 class. I guess this is 7. That's amazing. Went fast. I'm excited and very curious to see everybody's final projects. I know a lot of you aren't done. I hope you kind of shared maybe where you're at with those paintings. If you haven't, and you're like a little bit nervous, like, oh man, I didn't, I was too busy with this and that and I didn't share it. Feel free to share where you're at, because again, that's fine. I like to just see, and I think oftentimes getting feedback from me and from your fellow students while you're painting oftentimes can be more useful than getting feedback when you're like mentally, I'm done, because you're not going to make those changes that you might hear from other people. So let's go ahead and pop over to our Padlet page. Let's see if I can pull it up. All right, everybody sees our Padlet?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I've got the videos there from the last class. Online links, again, for anybody that is curious and wants to sign up for the next class, it'll be on skies and trees. Please do so. Just so you know, the website for the school for some reason is going through some changes and having some difficulty. I called and talked to them a couple times in the last couple days, and they just said, you know what, it might be easier if you actually call in. So anybody that's having struggles, it is not you. It is not your inability to use your computer. It is
Can you
the
show
website.
Ashley that video that I wanted her to check out?
Yeah,
right
yeah. Is it nice and short here?
No, I don't think it's very short.
Oh, it's 5 minutes, but yeah, I'll show it to her. I
If you
don't think
just point out where it is, I can find it myself.
so. It's right underneath online links. It's the next
Okay.
one down. Yeah, and I actually show with her in a gallery outside of Seattle in Edmonds, Washington. Her work is very fun and very interesting. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because actually you're doing kind of more meditational, quiet work, and her work is zesty and full of energy. So, but I'm sure you could learn a lot by watching that. So anyways, thank you for sharing that with the group, and thank you for sharing that with Ashley. That's fantastic. Class handouts. That's actually what I want to talk about really quickly. And I think I might go in reverse order. Everybody got my email yesterday, right? With basically all of the class handouts. I tried to. I hope I got them all.
Yeah, I tried,
I got it.
but I don't have Microsoft, so I guess I can't print them.
Oh,
So-
well, then what you can do simply is click on whichever one here and go to the download. Yeah, download attachment.
I think I tried that. I think I tried that, but I'll try it again.
Yeah, if you go
Either
to
that or
download
I'll either
it'll
that or
let
I'll
you-
just have to buy Microsoft if I can't figure it out.
There's a
Either
free
that
version
or-
of the Microsoft Word and everything like that. It's called, let me just try and think.
Google Docs.
There's something basically equivalent to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. It's open source, it's free, and you download it, and I just can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I use Google Docs, which is
Okay.
free and as good as so what you can do also is just see how what I'm doing is pushing my for me it's my left key on my mouse, and oops.
Oh,
Select all.
It's called, it's called LibreOffice. I'll put it in the
Fine.
comments.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, and you should be able to copy that and just paste it into a document,
all right.
or
Into a
just
Word doc.
let me know if you're not getting it, and maybe we can think of a. So yeah, I can just copy that. Push. So
Oh.
for me, it's Control C because I'm on a PC, not a Mac. So Control Copy basically, and I can just copy that and paste it into whatever I want. So just let me know. A lot of these I pasted into the previous emails as well.
And what was the other one that you said? Google what?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
Google Docs.
Oh,
Docs?
Google Docs. Yeah, that's a free one that,
All right,
Oh, also, sometimes, at least in, like with my printer, it has an option when, in my computer, when I go to print, it will let me select either my printer or convert to a PDF. And so you may be able to download it that way by just try to print it and then, but I don't know.
yeah, just let me know how it goes. Again, I'm just knowledgeable enough about all this computer stuff to be dangerous. And still learning, but yeah, I tried to share it through Word, well, a DOX software, which is pretty universal. And I don't know, yeah, you can't print directly from this page.
No, it doesn't like you to do that. It gets kind of screwy.
So yeah, just
But,
let me know how it goes.
Michelle, mine says print to file.
There you go. Yeah, something like
Because
that.
if you try and make a PDF now, Adobe one should pay for it.
Oh,
So I don't pay for mine. My son uses it a lot. So when I do billings, I send them to him and I get him to convert them to a PDF and then I send them out.
Yeah, and if you use Google Docs, it can shift it to any of the, it can shift it to Word or PDX. So if you use Google Docs,
okay, I'll try that.
it's a free account, super easy. You just push new. Let's just see what happens if I just do a copy and paste. Yep, so there it is. I just pushed Control C when I was on it before. Now it's telling me all the words I spelled badly. So long making these. But anyways, I just pushed Control C when I was here at our Padlet. Again, I just push my mouse down, hold it down, scroll, and oh, it doesn't want to.
I wonder if you right click and hit select all, will that work?
It says copy. Let's see what happens there. And then I go to Google Docs again, which is free. Yep. So yeah, the copy button. Good job, Michelle.
Just copy at the bottom or is that up top?
No, you just right click it. So here I
I
am.
saw it at the bottom.
All
I have
right.
a mouse with a left button and a right button. And when I push the right button, it just says copy.
Okay,
And I
great, I'll
click
try that.
and then I go to Google Docs and push Control V for me. Let's see if I could also probably use paste. So again, I push my left mouse key, paste. Yep, and there it is again. So now I have it 5 times.
All right,
Uh,
I'll get the Google Docs and I'll try it.
Yeah, Google. Do you use Google like email and stuff?
Now,
I have a Google email, but I never use that one.
So yeah,
But
as long as you have a Google account, it's free. It's amazing. They have all sorts of different formats. I can use Excel sheets on there, which is great.
Google Sheets and
Yeah,
Google
Google
Docs and
Sheets. So yeah. I think if I just click here, yeah, gives me all these options. Yeah,
all right,
and then yeah, you would just type in Google Sheets, and
in your upper right corner there where your picture is, yep, those little buttons, that little 9 buttons, click on that. And if you scroll down, it'll show you Google Docs, Google Sheets, keep scrolling.
oh, I see.
So that's how we can get to it from
Yeah.
a Google page. Or
and I
Google-
know like a number of my friends use the slides to actually set up their class documents so that they can put in, images, they can put in quotes and have it very much prettier than my handouts are. So that might be something I'll try to experiment with, add that to the list of things. Anyways, yeah, there's lots of ways. Again, the DOX program, which is what Word uses, is the most universal besides PDF. But what I like about the docs, is that once you've copied this and put it into like a Google document, is you can come in here and add your own notes. Like, so says Michael, comma, but what does he know? Right, you can add your own notes and you can change it and make it fit with your, you know, if there's ever parts here where I'm talking to Cheryl about doing acrylics and it's not interesting to you, you can just copy and delete all of that and just get rid of it. So that's what I hope, is that you'll take all of the handouts that I've given you and personalize them and make them, you know, as useful or whatever, what you're doing. So anyways, what I want to ask you guys before we get into the critique, and I wish I could see everybody, is I actually want to, as we go through these really quickly, just ask what was the most important lesson, or what is something that you're going to take forward, or what is something you wish I had explained a little better or expanded on. And this will help me going forward, but also I think that, you know, out of this class, 7 days, 7 handouts, there's definitely 1 or 2 things that's going to change Sandy Redmayne's life and Diane's life and Shaunik's life. And again, it's going to be different for all of us. But what is something that Nyla saw that was just like, that's the thing, that, you know what, that's the next step I'm going to be working on in my paintings, or that's the next thing I want to explore and experiment with. Oh, so this is not the one, because characters. This here was a kind of a brief handout. This is actually going to be our first lesson in the next class, and we're going to go into this in a lot more detail, the 4 value planes. And we're going to be using that as our first exercise while we explore the gradient of colors within the sky. So that one we can ignore a little bit right now, because that'll be covered next time in a much more detail. I'm trying to see where we actually started. I guess we started with mixing, split primary palette. So for those who, you guys can raise your hands or you can speak up here. Who of you really liked this? Who of you was this really new for? And who of you was like, yeah, that's nice, but I would actually like to have purple, orange, green, brown on my palette? Who did this really help?
This really
Yeah,
helped me.
It really helped me
All-
too.
All the art classes I have had all throughout my life, none of them had ever approached the split wheat primary like this. And I just found it absolutely fascinating. In fact, this is what I was talking with my granddaughter about. And I just found this totally new and invaluable. Thank you.
Gold star for you, Donna. Anybody else want a gold star?
Yeah,
See, I already know it on a theoretical level, because I like to do loads of reading and research. But what is completely different is actually getting made to practice that, which I think is what's going to help me stop buying random tubes of paint just to see what they're like, because I have a bit of a problem with that.
Me too. Bit of an addiction, some might
Yeah.
say.
Separate hobby, completely separate.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't remember where I read the math, but it was with like 6 primary palettes or 6 primary colors, a split primary. You can make up to, I think it was like 300,000 colors.
wow.
So you might not get the exact color, like maybe instead of, you know, the ultramarine blue, you want to, actually it'd be instead of the, well, here they, in my document here that says phthalo blue. So, you know, there may be a
Manganese, I
color
think.
you want to adjust, like maybe you do want a cadmium red light, whereas I use, you know, transparent red light oftentimes. Or here it says alizarin crimson. I use quinacridone red because I find it has even a bigger range of colors. So, but what I found is with having 6 colors and maybe 1 guest color, I can understand what's happening. Again, it goes back to that experimenting with our surfaces, our brushes, everything. I found that if I limit my experiments, I can understand what's happening and why it's happening. So yeah, having a split primary palette, you do not have to choose the colors I suggest, because I don't even choose the colors I suggest a lot of the time. But I still have a yellow that leans towards orange, a yellow that leans towards red, a blue that leans towards green, a blue that leans towards purple, a red that leans towards purple, and a red that leans towards orange, always. And with that, I'm able to mix an unbelievable amount of colors. So in that lesson, what we did is I had you mixing these middle colors, right? I had you mixing browns and really, really dark colors. Really quickly, who found that useful? Because that is actually a reversal. Thank you, Michelle. Let's talk about that here. Who found that reversal? Because normally I say, you know, here's the colors, here's all the colors you can mix, but actually mixing the darks and the really earthy colors first, that was helpful.
I really, that was really very helpful.
I absolutely loved it because I want to paint swamp scenes and there's a lot of grays and deep browns and blues and just various deep, these 3 deep colors and everything in the swamp. So I loved it.
Yeah,
I
what
like
I've
it
found
too.
with students is they'll be like, yeah, but then I still needed a burnt umber, or I still needed a black, right, to make those darks. But you
No,
guys quickly realized, holy cow, I can make the darkest of darks, and they're not black, they're not dead.
right.
They have
Yeah.
all the
That's so
soul
intriguing.
and
That's what's so
temperature.
intriguing. Yeah, I love it.
Sorry, Linda, I cut you off there. What were you saying?
I said, that's what's so intriguing is to watch it dry a couple of days after you apply these darks and they're not dead black. They have life in them.
Yeah.
It's like they're alive. The color is alive on your canvas, you know, and it's
Yeah,
beautiful. And it
100%.
reflects light differently than a burnt umber would or a burnt sienna would.
And it's just not obvious. Like you guys, as you go along and become better at analyzing your work and other people's work, you're going to start seeing like so many of my favorite painters, and it, you know, hurts me to say it, are Russians. I love Russian impressionist work, but they use black to an ungodly degree, and their shadows are always, to me, lacking. They're just these big kind of dead spots. And, you know, sometimes, especially with Russian painters, there can be a lot of dark in the painting. And I'm just like, you're missing out on, you know, 50% of your painting, 75% of your painting, because truthfully, there's so much information in shadows. There's so much beauty in the darks in our painting. And if we just go, well, that's dark, I know what to do, I add black, then we're missing out. So I'm glad you guys found that. Did anybody find it not useful? Would anybody have liked me to do it in the other order? Because this is me going forward as a teacher. Is this a good way to teach it?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's one of the most important things we did.
It's wonderful.
Hey, I want to ask Sharon, because I know Sharon's a little bit more of a beginner and a little bit more insecure with the painting. What did you think of doing those darks and those browns and those earthy colors right away, especially when you signed up for a glowing luminosity class?
Well, I will tell you, I made black and I made tons of it.
Yeah. It does
Yeah.
become the blob that eats all colors.
Just
I
keep
get that.
adding, you know, trying to get the black and just keep adding this and finally it did get black.
Yeah, so Sharon, with that, good note is split your piles up, because all of a sudden, if you get a really dark that's kind of warm, you just split it in half. And okay, now I've got a dark warm color, because that's still going to be useful in my shadows somewhere.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you're not, you know, otherwise, yeah, your pile just gets big and eventually it eats all the paint you put out on the palette. So I know that I always call it the blob that eats all the colors.
Yes.
So just keep splitting it up, because you want a warm dark, you want a cool dark, you want a greenish dark, you want a reddish dark. If you're just chasing super black and then you're going to add colors to it, you know, that's great. But if you already got those colors, just pull them aside and preserve them so you're not, you know.
I am trying to preserve them. but I'm not having, I'm going to get some really light, oil of some kind and put on top of them, because they do dry out, even though I got those little things, you know, the little plastic, and they're supposed to seal, but they really don't.
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah. Yeah. Putting a little bit of water on top of them will preserve them. Putting them in the freezer will preserve them. Adding a little like piece of cotton with a couple drops of clove oil will help preserve them. But yeah, this morning I pulled out my palette to set it up and all my colors were dry besides my white and my Indian yellow, which are the slowest drying colors. So yeah, I meant preserve them for other parts of the painting more, but yeah. Okay, so we have that.
I have one more thing to add to the,
Please.
I found it much easier, the grades were much easier with that. And when I say that, I didn't have to add white. I hate adding white because it makes everything chalky. And
Yeah.
that mixed dark color, I could add, just control the amount that I was adding to something to gray it down without adding white.
Oh,
And what I found also is even though my palette dries up, I can get back to those shades that those hues.
Much faster.
Because
Mhm.
Oh man, Linda just got her gold star. Perfect.
Thank
That's
you.
what I want you guys to, because yeah, like in the old days when I had 27 colors, you know, squeezed out, you know, and I would be painting my sky and run out of color. I'm like, oh crap, how did I make that color? You know, I've got 27 ingredients. How do I match that taste?
Mhm.
And with a limited palette, it's so much easier. And again, for some of you that are more on the beginner stage, I even say one primary of each is a great way to learn. Again, that's how I learned. I just find that when I teach that, I lose students because I think it's a little bit too mean, a little too limiting. And, you know, students are like, yeah, I can make purple-ish, but it's not a pretty purple, or I can make orange-ish. So by having the split primary, I think it's still understandable and reachable, but you have so much, you know, probably with 3 primaries, you can make, you know, 10,000 colors, and with, you know, 6 primary colors, you can make, you know, 30,000 colors. So it's a big difference, and you can make just much more vibrant colors. So
Yeah,
great.
I like doing it, but I still have a hard time getting the browns. I can get it, and then I'm like, well, how did I get it? And then to change it to a darker or lighter brown, it's like I don't know. I struggle with the browns to make a brown.
Absolutely, absolutely. So think red a little bit when you're thinking just brownish brown, like a generic brown, like we can all see Shaunik's elephant there. Like if you're thinking like the brown of that elephant's back, think red. So what I'm thinking oftentimes when I'm doing my browns is it a bluer, redder, or a yellower brown? And is it a warmer yellow brown, or a cooler yellow brown, or a more orangey yellow brown, or a more greener yellow brown? Right. So, and that will come by just practicing. But again, you're going to get there a lot faster, Sandy, by keeping it limited for at least a while. So yeah, I do understand that that is difficult and weird. But yeah, you'll get there faster if you keep it limited.
Okay.
All right, so these are the notes on the earth tones and the grayscale and everything else. We're just going to skip that because that's what we just talked about. So then we went to the muted colors and working from the inside of the palette out, which is again kind of what we were just talking about, is mixing those grays or those browns or those darks, and then adjusting them. So instead of working from the outside of the color wheel in from those primary colors, we are able to adjust those colors, especially for you know, those of you who are more interested in the tonalist work. Really, really useful having that big batch of mother colors or a couple big batches of mother colors, and then adjusting them. And you guys understand what I mean by that? Was I clear enough on that, mixing from the inside of the color wheel out?
Mhm.
Diane, I see you thinking thoughtful thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So you've mixed your colors and then you moderate them from the outside into your intermixed colors.
100%. Yep, exactly right. So let's say, just like Sandy was talking about, we mix a big batch, or Sharon has a huge batch of dark colors, a big pile. Then we can say, you know what, this portion of the paint needs, a redder version. This needs a lighter version. This needs a warmer version. This needs a cooler version. And so then we're able to modify those colors. It's not how I always paint, but it's a great tool to be able to think both ways, from the outside in, meaning we're taking these primary colors and we're neutralizing them, versus taking neutralized colors and making them more vibrant and feeding into the color scheme that we want more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then we get to the complementary colors, which is how we get a sense of vibrancy. Not always, but this is a great tool for those of you who want to paint punchier paintings or want areas of your painting to stand out. Regini, this one's going to be huge for you as a colorist. I find it so fun that I've got all these different students. I've got Michelle, who paints these kind of soft and atmospheric paintings. I've got Gail, who leans towards tonalism. I've got Regini, who's a colorist. I've got Donna, who comes from a more colorist background. I've got Sandy, who's painting and living in this very vibrant atmosphere and colorful, and you want to capture that. And I think it's so fun that with a complementary colors, meaning across the color wheel, by putting them side by side or close together, that we get this vibrancy. So even Gail, who might be painting more tonalistically, knows that I want this area to stand out. This is the focal point. This is the thing that the painting's about. I can use, not always, but I can use complementary colors to make that area punchy. Or like I said in my example, is I was trying to paint yellow flowers on the ground on a sunny day, and I just couldn't make them. Yellow paint was not yellow enough. So by putting a little bit of purple next to it, all of a sudden the yellow just felt that much brighter, that much more vibrant, and that much more pure. So you know what? I mean, sometimes you just run into I can't make these colors brighter. I can't make them lighter. I can't make them more colorful than they are. So that's where that's what that was about. Anybody have anything to add? Did you find that useful, Regini?
Yeah.
I can even see it in your red tree behind you, where you have areas of green next to the red. You've got the blue, which is not blue and red are not exactly complementaries, but then on the edge of your red tree behind you, you've got kind of a reddish orange, which is where the light's hitting next to the cool blues, and that makes that lit side of the tree that much more dynamic.
Yeah.
I gotta leave now. So thanks I enjoyed the class. So I gotta go.
Okay, Sandy, are you able to join us tomorrow at all?
I might be out for the beginning part, maybe.
Okay, well, if you want to pop in, I will talk about your painting. I know I said I won't critique or give feedback, but you've been working really hard, and I want to give you some feedback. So otherwise,
that's all right. You can just do it in the recording or whatever, and I can watch it back.
Okay.
I need to go as well.
Bye-bye.
All right, great having you, Sandy. Hopefully
Bye.
we'll see each other soon.
Bye-bye.
Everybody have a
Alright.
wonderful day and God bless you all.
You too.
Yeah, it was so
Bye.
nice painting with you, Sharon.
Oh, you'll see me again.
Good luck with the puppy. All right. The self-critique, which again, I just made, this was literally made for myself with notes for myself. This has become really, really useful. Right now I am up against it. I've got 13 paintings I got to get out in the next 2 months, and they're big. All of them are big. So by having this and using this as a checklist is allowing me to move forward with confidence. I've literally, made sure my design and composition. I'm gonna take a quick break. My dad keeps calling, and when he calls back to back, that means there may be something. So I'm gonna take a quick break. Oh, nope, he hung up. Okay. I'll call him on the break. Anyways, that's for you. This is something I hope you personalize. I hope that you use from time to time, especially when you're insecure moving forward with your painting. I know, Ashley, you and I talked about, having something like this. I hope you find it useful. Any questions or feedback on that before we jump forward to the next thing?
No, that's very useful. Thank you.
All right, great. Create glow with and warmth in your paintings. So yeah, using warm and cool colors. Again, it's almost like using the split primary, but just putting these colors side by side. And then we talk about what happens when you combine the colors. That's creating those neutrals in the middle. And then within each color that you have this band, like a green can be cool, a green can be warm. I always have a hard time with my oranges, like which one's warmer. I do kind of think now that just orange is one of the hottest colors, hotter than red or yellow. But that's up for debate. So anyways, just ideas on that. And then relative color. I think that's the most important part of that lesson, is that I could paint an entire color in purples, knowing that I can have cool purples and warm purples. I can have darker purples. I can have lighter purples. And that every color, like so many of my students come from other classes, from other workshops, from reading books, and they're telling me, well, red is warm or yellow is warm. Yes, but yellow is only warm compared to the, every color is only warm compared to the color it's next to, or only cool compared to the color that it's next to. I think that when we are taught absolutes, like blues and greens are cools, purples are cools, reds, yellows and oranges are warms, that gets us into a lot of issues. When I used to teach the split primary palette, in the very, very, very beginning, years and years ago, I used to say, this is the warm yellow, this is the cool yellow, this is the warm red, this is the cool red. And I've stopped doing that. I now say that this is a yellow that leans towards green, and this is a yellow that leans towards red. And I find it much more understandable. I think that everything is up for debate when it comes to colors. And the main thing, again, for those of you writing notes, color and temperature are relative. If everything is warm on your painting, all the colors are browns, reds, oranges, yellows, then you've got to figure out which ones are warmer, right? Because you're painting with a warm palette. Same thing can be done with, all the cool paintings. You can still make a painting with blues, purples, and greens that feels like it has warmer areas, because the purples are going to feel warmer, or the yellowier greens are going to feel warmer than the other ones. That makes sense to everybody? Relative color.
Yeah.
It's an amazing, amazing tool. Transparent and opaque paints. How many of you have taken other classes, other workshops, or been painting for a while, and that never hardly became an issue in your paints? You never thought about it.
I didn't.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And it was only in studying Maxfield Parrish and Renoir and all these, the French Impressionists, and just going, oh, they're painting with opaque paints. Oh, he's painting with transparent paints. And then looking at my favorite painters, John Singer Sargent and Zorn and Joaquin Sorolla, and going, oh, they're using transparent paints and opaque paints. They're using thin paint application and thick paint application that I really realized, holy cow, I have not been utilizing what oil paints are capable of. And once we learn transparency versus opacity in our oil paints, a whole nother world is opened up to us with what our paints can do. Again, the simple rule is transparent paint is like glass, right? Like colored glass, like your sunglasses or whatever. It allows for the light to travel through it and hit the surface or whatever color you have underneath it, and then bounce back. Opaque paint, the light bounces directly off that paint, right? Revealing the color. So within transparency, we have a lot more of interesting effects that can happen. The truth is that if you are a fan of, you know, the French Impressionists or the alla prima movement, which has really taken over since the plein air movement has really exploded in the US and around the world, is a lot of those paintings are more opaque. They're generally not using transparency. You can, but it's difficult when painting a painting all in one sitting to use transparency very effective. Transparent paint lends itself to what is called an indirect painting method, meaning that you're planning to visit the painting in multiple sittings. You may want the layers to dry because you're going to be using layers. Whereas opaque paint or transparent paint used thickly lends itself to a more alla prima, all at once kind of painting style. So you can decide, like Sandy, when you're going out and painting the ocean and all the beautiful scenes around you, you may want to lean in towards the opaque paints. If you're just kind of like, I want to capture this in, you know, 35 minutes, 40 minutes and get it all down. But if you want to, you know, create a glowing, soft, hazy atmosphere, then you may want to use, you know, a combination or transparent paints. Does that make sense? Again, this is just a quick review of all of our lessons.
Yes, it makes sense.
Here's a new thing that I learned, or actually just put verbiage to, meaning I put words to the thing I was wrestling with for years, is that transparent paint goes over opaque paint once the opaque paint's dry. Opaque paint will go over transparent paint wet into wet. So if I'm wanting to paint quickly, I can still use transparent paint, but I can't put, I can put transparent paint on top of opaque paint, but it doesn't do much when I'm painting wet into wet. Whew, that was a mouthful. I got to figure out how to write that down and say it. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay. And I guess
When it's effective.
it's when it's effective. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And again, with transparent paint, if you're using it as a glaze, for those of you who are writing notes, glazing, no matter what, always makes the painting darker. Indian yellow is thin and transparent and as clear as it is, still makes the painting a little bit darker. Quinacridone red, also very bright and colorful and very transparent, still makes the painting a little bit darker. So just know that. The other thing I'm going to say before we finish up with these lessons is that there is the opportunity, even if I've painted with opaque paints, to use transparent paints. Like, let's just say I've got a setting sun, and when I put yellow paint, it's not doing what I want. So I need the transparent effect of the yellow over, you know, to make it very, very bright. I will just let that opaque layer dry, add white paint, let that layer dry, and then glaze into that area. So there are times when a painting feels pretty done, but you know what? It's not getting the vibrancy or the glow I want. I will just revisit it. I have to be patient because it's going to take a week or two to dry, but I will put down white or very, very light paint where I want that brilliant, glowy thing to happen. And then I let that white paint dry, and then I can go in and just glaze that area. I see a bunch of slightly bewildered expressions.
Not so bewildered, just thinking, just trying to remember when I want to do that, to remember it.
Okay. So let's use a sunset as an example. And let's say that we've painted it, we have nice colors, we've got our cloud, everything's down, and we could be done. But you know what? The sun itself and the little area around the sun, and let's even expand that and say like the bottoms of the clouds that are really catching that light, from the setting sun. They're just not, they're dull. They're not as vibrant as I want. I can just go in and add white to the sun, maybe a little bit, kind of smoothed out a little bit going out into the sky. And then underneath the clouds where I really want some strong light to be hitting, Cheryl, I will just put a little bit of white, or, maybe not even white, but just much lighter paint. Let that dry. And then come in and glaze it with, my Indian yellow or my transparent yellow or my whatever color. And all of a sudden that area glows again. It's like I went back to the gessoed layer again.
So Michael, like
Please.
if you put white, then you're kind of like starting over again. You're not going to see the color that was dull. Is that right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, just imagine whiteout. You've misspelled the word, and
Okay.
or you just, it wasn't the right word. It was a good word, but it wasn't, as exciting as you wanted it.
Yeah.
So there's times, because if I put like, again, bright yellow paint, even if I put a pile of Indian yellow, it's going to look orangish, or it's going to look, whatever color it comes out of the tube. But if I need it lighter and brighter than that, then I can use the transparency in that paint by putting it on thin, letting the light go through it, hitting that white that I put there before, and bounce back. And I get this extra layer of vibrance. How you thinking about that, Nyla? I see you up there.
I'm thinking that's exactly what I needed to do on that sunset painting. I just put in Hansa yellow to do the light over what I had already done after it dried. But if I had done this, it would have been so much better.
Good news, Nyla. It's not too late. You can still add white. You can add white on top of that. Because that's the thing, right? You're just like, well, I need bright yellow. Okay, I've got this Hansa yellow. And Hansa yellow gets so bright. But the truth is, if you're using the transparency of it, so you're basically, to create a transparency, all you're doing is taking the particles that are within the paint, right? What the color is made of, you're spreading them out. You're letting the light get in there and bounce around and bounce back to the viewer. It is brighter and lighter oftentimes than the pure paint.
So Michael, once you put the white or light color, you glaze with Indian yellow or thread or
whatever color you want. So let's just say I was painting rose petals. Right. And there's this one spot where the light is either coming through the back of the rose petals, and I've got this gorgeous transparency, or the light is hitting those rose petals, right? I wouldn't use Indian yellow unless I was painting a Indian yellow colored rose petal. But if it was, let's just say that it's a warm red rose with cool purpley shadows, right?
Yeah.
So in that area, so just look at your reference, or just think about what the image is. So Indian yellow is not the cure-all. It's not always the color you want or need. It can be any color, but you just probably want to lean towards a more transparent color. So in that case with the rose, where let's just say it has a warmish sun behind it and it's a transparent rose petal. It's got parts that aren't transparent, where it's in shadow stuff. I can leave those. And then the part that I want it to be very bright and shiny and beautifully transparent, I would probably glaze into that area.
Okay.
And the cool thing about this, Michelle, going back, is that a lot of times I want there to be a paint texture to it. Because if I'm only using my canvas or my panel as my transparent colors, then I've got a very flat surface. And I like, again, I buy mostly paintings from others that have paint, that have a quality of texture. And so for me, that has been a big hindrance of like, oh, I've got to preserve this luminosity. But now I'm like, oh, you know what? I can bring that luminosity back later in my painting. I do use fast matte white or a fast drying white. That really helps. Yeah, so good question, Regini. So no, Indian yellow, if it could be any color. It could be, I could use ultramarine as my transparent color, or you know, any of the transparent colors. And I can mix them too. If it's a red rose, but the transparent portion of the flower looks warm, maybe it's a touch of Indian yellow and a touch of, you know, you make the color.
Yeah, okay.
And you could do it in layers too. You could use quinacridone red for a thin layer, or transparent warmer red. And then if that's not warm enough, add a tiny bit of, you know, transparent Indian yellow over that after it's dried again. That's the great thing about transparency. And the other great thing is Nyla, if I put it on and it's too strong, like I put on quinacridone red and I'm like, holy cow, that's too, you know, that looks like cotton candy. It was supposed to look like this. I can wipe it back still, right? All right, that may be the biggest takeaway for some of you of this whole entire class. I could see Gail and Regini and even Cheryl, I could see in some of your work, you really going kind of buck wild with this, painting your painting, it looking, you know, nice, but it doesn't have that punch.
Yeah.
In that area that you need a punch, that focal point where your ballerina, your diva really needs to sing, and you got to get the spotlight on her, right?
Yes.
And the student's not in here, but we had another student previously in one of the other classes where her paintings were beautiful and vibrant, and she's a great painter, but everything was singing. Everybody was the prima ballerina, everybody was the diva. So with her, we did glazing in the opposite. I had her going and using browns or blues or whatever to subdue all of the supporting characters. Yeah, you remember that, Michelle? And Linda, what was her name? Anyways, remember when, yeah, and all of a sudden she just keep areas clear that were about, you know, what the painting was about, where the viewer was meant to look. And she could really darken some areas. She could slightly darken some areas. She could cool areas. And all of a sudden, as a viewer, you're just like, ah, this is what the painting is about. Oh, this is how I'm supposed to look through the painting surface.
Someone in this class mentioned about the blue tape when you're taping off the edges. Was that Cheryl? Who was that?
I don't
Like
think
we
it
did
was
earlier.
in what context?
I mentioned it,
Who's that?
Donna.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was like eye-opening for me, of also just Michael talking about the colors being relative. And so putting blue tape, I'm gonna have to look for some black artist tape, but I thought that was a great observation. You know, you've got the blue right there and you're painting up next to it, and how that might trick your eye.
Absolutely. And they do have a gray now. I haven't bought
They do?
any, but yeah, there is a gray painter's tape now. So,
I get the black artist tape just on Amazon.
perfect. Okay, gang. Any last questions, comments? I would love to go through and ask each and every one of you, you know, what was your main takeaway? What do you wish we explored more? But we don't have time. We're already halfway through the class, and I definitely want to give feedback and look at all your beautiful work. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. If you guys would be so kind, here's what I want from you as your nice gift to me is I would love a little review of the class. If you're, you know, if it's nice and wonderful and anything, I will, with your permission, use it in my feedback so that I can share that on my website to promote future classes and everything else. But even more than that, what I want is your feedback on what was the most useful, what you found, you know, what's your 1-2 takeaways from this class? What made it worth your time and your effort? And I guess you could even say your money. That's going to help you going forward. And then bonus to that would be like, you know what, we could have spent more time on this, or maybe you could have explained this better, just so I know as a teacher going forward what I can be clearer about or be a better teacher about.
Via email?
Via email, please. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah,
going to
sure.
go ahead and stop the video here. That is part 1. And we're going to take a break. I'm going to go call my dad just to make sure, because my dad's not the kind of guy that calls 3 times back to back. So I want to go double check on that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at all your beautiful work. And my goal is to paint. I've got my paint set out. I've got the picture that Gail shared with us. And I hope to paint into that, maybe a faster, bigger painting, bigger brushes. But anyways, for those of you who can hang with us, it may be a slightly longer class, which here's like, you mean a normal class? They're always long. But I just love talking about this stuff. So anyways, I will see you guys. It is 11:05. We'll get back at 11:15.
Okay.